So without exaggeration, that's me literally just walked through the door on today's long run, which was 16 mile or just over 25k. So recently am I through the door. Have I not even actually posted on Strava yet? So does it really count? There we go. Yeah, so 15.96 miles, average pace of 9 minutes, 6 seconds per mile, which is what I want to talk about today. So phase one of building up to the ice was increasing my VO2 max. Now that's quite atypical. Most people don't really have adequate aerobic conditioning, but do a lot of the top end stuff already. So actually their greatest priority and the low hanging fruit is lots of zone 1 and zone 2. However, I had already been doing like 11 to 15 hours of zone 1 and 2 for about 2 years, obviously in anticipation of the Marathon des Sables, and then of course the Jungle Ultra early this year. So my capacity, my engine was vast. So we refer to that as we've raised the ceiling. The ceiling was, we've raised the floor. The floor is really pretty high. So then the low hanging fruit was to raise the roof. So raise that top end speed and raise our VO2 max, the maximal amount of oxygen that our body can basically deal with at any given time. We had a really successful phase one, and phase one testing showed that we'd taken about 35 seconds per mile off ventilatory threshold 2 or aerobic capacity. And then we'd also increased top end speed by around about 15 seconds. So lactate threshold had increased by about 15 seconds per kilometer. Okay, so that's obviously quite an impact on the grand scheme of things. Now we're moving into phase two, where we're focusing on what's known as fractional utilization. Now that's a really long word. All it actually means is the percentage of your VO2 max that you can use over a long distance. So it's all well and good having a really good capacity. You can run zone 1, zone 2 paces for hours and days, and having a high VO2 max, i.e. you can smash a fast 5K. But if you haven't trained your body to operate close to that VO2 max for extended periods of time, then what will happen over a long race, like a multi-stage race that I'm doing, is you can set off real fast and your pace will just drift. Okay, and this is what we call anaerobic, cardiac uncoupling or decoupling. Is your ability to sustain that pace will just diminish. So what we're now doing is looking at increasing the sustained pace over distance. That's why today's run is genuinely a record breaker for me personally. And I put my hands up, it's not the fastest time in the world. I'm not here to be the fastest guy in the world. I'm here to be a tractor on multi-stage races in the most austere and extreme environments on Earth. 4 or 5 months ago, that would have been probably in the region of 25 minutes longer. That run would have been averaging sort of 10 to 10 and a half minute mile. And then we've come in today at 9:06 mile. And that wasn't tanking it. That wasn't smashing the heart out of it. That was in zone 2. And if you want to cross-reference and look at any of the data that I'm putting forwards, you can follow me on Strava. Just search Mark Uncharted or Mark Rhodes, you'll probably find me. And you can go back through the legacy data. Like the beautiful thing about Strava is you can't bluff it. You can't just like make shit up and put it on there like people do on Instagram. You can of course hide your heart rate, which makes you look fitter than you are, etc. so on and so forth. But I've never done that. Not once have I ever done that. I implore you to go back for 3 years and have a look at the times. They were nowhere near where they are now. And this is a proof of concept of what is possible and what you will be capable of if you have intelligent approaches and periodized planning behind your performance training. So we hit a time today, which I'm very, very happy with, considering it was literally the smack bang in the middle of zone 2. And that's actually off the back of yesterday's session, which was to deliberately pre-fatigue the legs. So in the VO2 max phase, which was about 8 weeks, the bike session was 30 seconds, as fucking hard as possible, 30 seconds recover, 8 times, rest 2.5 minutes, repeat that for 4 sets. Now we're moving across into muscular endurance, and again, that ventilatory threshold kind of work and increasing lactate threshold. So yesterday's session, which was deliberately designed to take steam out of my legs heading into today, was 5 minutes at a low cadence. So low, we're identifying as between sort of 50 and 65 pedals per minute or RPM, holding a zone 3 heart rate. So the watts are really pretty high, and what we're looking at doing there is activating those type 2A fibers, which ordinarily don't get that much work until the latter stages of very long and extreme endurance event. So we're really activating and taking the gas out of all of those, increasing lactate threshold, pre-fatiguing the legs, so that we get a really, really good amount of stimulus from today without having to be out for 5-6 hours or more. Because the truth is, I have a social life, I have things that I want to do, and in the past I've made all those sacrifices, and I'm still willing to do them, but anywhere that we can get away without having to sacrifice people's personal life, people's energy, people's relationships, time they can spend in the office, anywhere we can get away with that, we're going to do it, because we specialize in working with high-performing people who have many different sort of balls in the air, and they want to spend the afternoon with their missus, and I've done all that training today, and I had a pretty leisurely morning. I've done all my training, and I'm finished by, it's now 8 minutes past 12. Okay, so that's done, boxed off. I've got the afternoon to kind of just do a few bits around the house, get some admin done. I've actually got to pick my dinner jacket up. I've got a black tie engagement this evening, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, I've now got the rest of the day to do that. And this is the difference between, if I'm, in my biased opinion, going to say it, organizations like mine and Uncharted and the layman's running coach. We're looking at high performance across the board, which means that we do have to make trade-offs and considerations about logistics and situational constraints, and have the kids got their nativity play this week, so have we got to factor that training in? And we can still factor all that stuff in. Because this week's been a tremendous week for me personally. Lots going on, including the first birthday anniversary of Bravery HQ. So I think I've spoken on this before in these videos, but Bravery is a brand that's extraordinarily inspiring to me. And if you haven't checked them out already, I really encourage you to research Toby Gutteridge, or Tobias Gutteridge, former Royal Marine turned SBS operator, one of the youngest guys to serve in an SBS squadron, unfortunately, tragically shot through the neck on operation deployment in Afghanistan, rendering him paralyzed from the neck down, unable to even breathe for himself. Despite being permanently bound in a wheelchair, not able to do anything other than talk and kind of move his eyes around, and even his talking has to be done via a ventilator apparatus. Despite all of that, he has launched a charity. He's launched a highly successful clothing brand that now sends money and proceeds to various underprivileged children's groups across the world, notably in South Africa, and has impact through surfing, getting kids off the street. He inspires an untold amount of people, myself included in that. So if you haven't checked out Bravery, I really recommend that you do. And that's not a plug, like I'm not on the payroll, I'm not on the books, none of that sort of shit. Toby will never even know that I probably said this. But it's just a really cool mission and vision behind a really cool statement and a really cool brand. So there's a lot of brands out there that kind of portray they are the dog's obvious and that they are, all about overcoming adversity and so on and so forth. And there's a couple that genuinely are. Through Dark is one, again, I'm very, very close to personally and sort of emotionally, like that whole message of endeavor through adversity. Bravery is another, because the founders are just legitimate people. They've been there, done it, and now they're articulating that in a really meaningful way. Gone off topic, started talking about training, now I'm talking about fashion. But hopefully there's been some value in that for you. The one last thing I'll talk about is nutrition. And that's something that I've actually gotten a little bit wrong this week. Body weight has actually gone up by about 4 kilos since we started this prep, which I'm really happy with. But as a result, there's been a lot of non-lean tissue added as well. I say a lot, a little bit more than we would like. And so we decided to try and reduce calories a little bit, still within that kind of performance parameter, just to sort of like neaten things up a little bit. Because if you start getting fat, then it becomes a real problem to sustain the endurance without worsening body composition, and there's numerous health ramifications as a result of that, so on and so forth. And no one wants to get fat and squidgy. So we tried to put it down. We definitely put it down too far. Only a couple of hundred calories, but that does accumulate through a hard training week. And yesterday I bonked big time coming off the bike. If any of you listen to this and have bonked before, you'll know how truly unpleasant it is. If any of you listen to this and haven't bonked, but are in endurance sport, it's probably just a matter of time and it's fucking awful. You will taste pennies, you'll cold sweat, your hearing goes, like you're cold and clammy. It's basically you've just gone hypoglycemic from overexertion and underfueling. It's not like serious, it's not going to kill you. It just means you need to get a lot of sugar in. That happened yesterday. Consequently, ate about 1 million grams of carbohydrates to get kind of tissue glycogen back up to where it needs to be ready again for today. So we did get that wrong. So we've kind of aimed off. I say I got that wrong. So we've kind of aimed off and we've pulled it back sort of central. And then we're just going to let the increasing training volume over the next week do what it needs to do with regards to body composition changes. But as I said, I'm going to wrap that up there. Really looking forward to this afternoon, getting a little bit of rest and recovery on the roller. Lots of good food. When I say good food, I'm talking obviously lean protein sources, as much minimally processed carbohydrate as possible. And then to hit the numbers that I'm required to hit, the remainder will be from processed sources, cereal, bread and jam, all that sort of stuff. Getting it in. We're on 675 grams of carbohydrate today. Black tie engagement this evening, and because of the proximity to the race, I will not be smashing the arse out of it. I plan to have 2 pints of the black stuff, and then I will be in good order for tomorrow to tackle another training week. So as I said, any questions, any queries, any feedback at all, I would genuinely love to hear it. And otherwise, have a great weekend, an even better week, and I'll speak to you again very soon.